Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome along to what is episode 20 of the Scottish Football Social Club on Premier Sports in association with McBookie. The transfer window is very much open, which means all sorts of speculation on the show. Nothing new in that regard. As you can see, Alan and Michael are back with us. We'll try and get into all of the big talking points. And with so many, we felt we needed some backup. And my word, we got more backup. Big Johan Mjällby's back on the show. Good to see you, Johan. How are you?
Thank you. I'm very well. I got some needed sun, so I'm really refreshed, ready to go.
Good, man. The boys have missed you because they like you a lot more than they like me, which is no surprise. I just speak the truth, Al, don't I? Right, let's get right into it because there's so much going on. Alan, obviously part of the Union Bears, so he left Ibrox in the 55th minute at the weekend. We'll get to that very, very soon. It's a serious matter, Al. Let me tell you, it's a serious matter. But we'll come to it in just a moment. Let's kick things off, Johan, with the Saturday games and start with Celtic, who won comfortably in the end in Dingwall. What did you make of their performance there and the way they've been playing recently?
Yeah, no, good enough. They've been very efficient. They're scoring goals in the right moments. Confidence-wise, they're just there, and even when they don't perform, even when they don't play well, they win quite easily the games. Apart from the Rangers game where they deservedly lost, because it's quite nice, isn't it? Because we talk about this modern game and all about, philosophy, all about the ball and playing short passes and just keep possession. If you don't have the desire, the passion, and if you don't turn up, on the day, you won't win. And that's always going to be a part of football. And I like that. That's refreshing. But Celtic, they are by far the best team in the country, and they showed it against Ross County again.
Yeah. It's interesting, as the action goes through here. Interesting you mentioned the Rangers game. We'll come back to that because we've not seen you since that. And I know Callum McGregor spoken in the last day or so saying maybe a bit of a wake-up call, that game to Celtic, and a reminder you can't take anything for granted, and it's allowing them to kick on again the rest of the league season. You never want to lose to your biggest rivals, but he's trying to look at what might be a positive in the end, the way Celtic bounce back from this. What we saw in this match, though, Ross County, we saw two strikers, two forwards playing together, if you like. Yep. Kyogo obviously scoring a couple of goals, Ida playing with him as well. So a slightly different system, slight tweak to the system, if you like. Do you think those two can operate well together going forwards? Do you like what you see from that kind of combination, Johan?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. You have Kyogo with his energy, always willing to run in behind, and very clever with the ball. And then you got Adam Aida, who's he's a prime physical specimen. He can hold the ball up, he can bounce off, and he can tackle around and open up gaps in that sense. And he's a threat in the air in the box as well. So I don't see any reason why they couldn't play well together. But then it's the rest, up to the rest of the team, to the midfield, to get used to having two strikers and to play with them, and give them ammunition, to score goals as well.
But when Johan, by the way, says prime physical specimen, it's a fact, because look at the big man there. He is prime. They say, I don't know what age you are now, Johan, but still in his prime. He's fitter than ever.
Listen, Adam Aida, he would have been in my back pocket, physically.
And there's no doubt about that.
No, I'm just kidding.
Michael, what did you make of Celtic and this slightly new role for Kyogo, if you like, which meant he got on the ball a lot more touches than maybe you've seen in recent matches?
Look, I don't think it does Celtic any harm just having, a slightly different dynamic. It's obviously not what they're normally accustomed to, with two out-and-out wingers who go and get 1v1s against the fullbacks as often as possible. So I actually don't think it's a bad thing to just add another sort of dynamic to the team. I don't think it's something that Brendan Rodgers will look to deploy too often, but for certain games, absolutely no reason why they shouldn't look to do that. And just touching on the, Callum McGregor's comments, the fact that Celtic are able to pick up maximum points since then, and Rangers have been dropping points left, right and centre, I think it allows them to be able to look upon things positively. And ultimately, and I've said this on a number of occasions, for Celtic, building towards that young boys game in particular is massive. And if that is the wake-up call, never mind domestically, but just as the season as a whole, just to make sure that they don't take the foot off the pedal at all and drift towards that young boys game, then you will look back on it afterwards and say, well, it was actually beneficial.
That's the only danger, Alan, really, isn't it? Because the league's in Celtic's back pocket, if you like, because they're so far clear of everyone else. So that's the only danger, the knock-on effect, maybe a bit of complacency. And the European games now are vital. Look at Michael laughing away. The European games are vital.
I'm laughing at Al. I'm laughing at Al. He's chuckling away.
No, it's true, though. I mean, it's true, but the thing about Celtic, especially at this moment in time, it was a difficult pitch to go up there. I thought Amisan goals was really good.
Yeah,
he was
probably
good,
kept them in it. Yeah,
he
kept the score down. Celtic a little bit of a change. We're obviously Kyogo coming off the right and allowed Alistair Johnston to get forward. But look, the big test for them is Europe. The thing with games like that at the weekend is they're showing a side to them where, do you know what, they can roll up their sleeves, just get on with it. And I think that's something that is probably Rangers' downfall, that they've not been able to do that away from home. And that's why ultimately Celtic will be the champions.
There were question marks raised by some, Alan, about whether or not Alistair Johnston should have seen red for the foul, the penalty he gave away. What do you think of that?
It's funny how you come to me for that, isn't it? Well,
I thought you might want to talk about it. Just guessing.
Technically, it's a goal scoring opportunity, which he stopped. Is there a lot in it? Probably not. I think he knows himself that he's caught the wrong side. He's struggling to get back in, and he's just tried to nudge him just to put him off. So I can see why people would think that. If he did give it, would it be overturned? Probably not.
I tell you what was astonishing. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure watching it playing out in real time, he didn't get booked for it.
No.
So I can't quite fathom that one out. You know, that later on in the game, obviously James Brown, who makes a genuine attempt, and by the way, for me, I don't think it's a penalty. I genuinely don't think it's a penalty. I don't think there's enough in it.
What, the one on Yang? Or you talk about Yang here?
For Celtic's penalty kick. I don't think there's enough in it for VAR to get involved. I think there's a genuine coming together of two players. But the point I'm going to make here is he gets booked for it.
Yeah.
And Alistair Johnston didn't.
It's a fair point. It's not.
Alistair Johnston for me is not a red card. It's not a red card. I don't think there's nearly enough in it.
It's the penalty's enough, I think, in my opinion. Give the penalty, whatever. If it's a yellow card, then fine. But he knows it himself. He spoke after the game and he knew he was the wrong side there. You're struggling as a fullback to get back in. You're just trying to do enough to put him off without fouling him. Unfortunately, he didn't. Leans on and it's a penalty. But I'm with you with the Yang one. I thought that was a genuine attempt to get the ball and come together.
That's the key thing, by the way, obviously, for Alistair Johnston. That's the key thing.
It's a physical game. It's like we're not allowed to touch each other on the pitch anymore.
It's changed. I mean, that's a part of it. It's definitely changed.
Yeah. Johan, if that's a red now, can you imagine when you were playing?
Oh, wow. No, all of us, Michael and Alan, I mean, it's a different game. We know that, and you have to follow the rules, of course, but sometimes I just feel it's getting a wee bit silly, now and then.
Yeah. You used to get a free one. Even when I was playing, you used to get a free one as a fullback where you could jump up with your arm there and your knee up and everything and hit the winger and say, well, do you fancy it? But now you just
tackle of the night.
Yeah.
For me, you need to try and find the balance, because you don't want to be finding players getting injured, but it's become ludicrous where you need to draw the line somewhere in terms of if you go any further, and in fact, for me, I think in certain aspects it has gone too far, you get into a situation where it becomes a non-contact sport and you start scrutinising and analysing every bit of contact. This for me is just that's normal contact.
Yeah. He actually misses the ball. Yeah. Michael, see if
he does. He does.
That's the problem. If he actually connected, he probably scores.
You mean Yang?
He's actually missed the ball when he's going to try and kick it.
Doesn't Yang miss the ball though because of the contact?
I don't think
across
so.
At the very same time.
Play it back again. When you see it in and you see him swing through, he actually misses the ball.
Because there's contact in the thigh and the top half of the body before he tries to swing. Anyway, you can argue them both.
But this is a point, though, Daryl. Right? See, and this is why I think this season has been better. there is enough in that. If you want to make it a penalty kick, you can justify it. But that is the classic case of you're lowering the bar. And for me, with VAR, you want to higher the bar, the threshold, to be given big decisions. If that had not been given as a penalty kick, I think it becomes less of a talking point than when you do give it, it becomes more of a talking point. And you want these incidents to be less of an issue.
Yeah, fair point. Look, there's all sorts of speculation about Celtic players at the moment coming and going, Johan. As you know, there's been a bit of sort of newspaper talk and actually MLS contact with Kyogo, which then, of course, the MLS had to apologise for.
Made the wrong name. What was it, the wrong name?
They named the wrong person. But obviously that led to some speculation, and Brendan Rodgers has spoken about that, Johan. Celtic cannot afford to let Kyogo go, clearly. What do they need at the moment, though, Celtic? Because it also looks like Lewis Palmer, it might be off, as Michael said a while ago. Go on,
wait a minute. There is no Stuart Granger that MLS got the wrong person.
No, this doesn't happen.
They spoke about him playing for Celtic and they named him Kyogo Furuhashi. What I would love to know is what was actually going on behind the scenes. Because what's clearly happened here is they've released a story when they shouldn't have, because there wasn't a deal that was done. But what
too
was
early.
actually lurking
Too early.
It certainly it looks that way, doesn't it? And maybe just in case the transfer went through, they had the story ready to go, and somebody pressed the button, the wrong button, and in it went. And of course, that's led to a lot of speculation. But just on Kyogo, a couple of goals at the weekend. He's too important with these Champions League games ahead, isn't he, Johan, to possibly even conceive letting him go at the moment?
No, they won't. They won't. There's no chance. Like you said, this young boys game is going to be massive for the club and for the aspiration from the manager as well. You know, he really wants to do well in Europe, and they got a golden opportunity here to get through, and which is going to be massive. Like I said, for the club and everyone surrounding, and being a part of the club, because they know that the league is already there, so they've already won a title. So everything is looking rosy and good for them, great for them. But looking forward, are they going to look for players? Yeah, they always look for players, but I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure anything major is going to happen really in this window. Regarding Celtic.
No, it looks like Lewis Palmer might be off, Michael. Looks like he might be away. You called that a few weeks ago. So once maybe one or two go out, then you get more in.
I think I called it a few months ago, Darryl.
I was actually going to say that, but anyway.
Yeah, you did. I remember that, Michael.
Well, I mean, it was pretty apparent. It was quite obvious. But I was just going to say about Kyogo first of all as well. He wouldn't want to leave Celtic at this moment to go to the MLS.
You wouldn't have thought so.
29-year-old. Celtic are on the cusp of qualifying for the Champions League knockout stages. He's not going to want to leave. No chance. Maybe in a couple of years he might think about it, but not at this stage of his career and at this stage of the campaign as well. No chance. But for Lewis Palmer, I do think it probably just suits everybody that he moves on, gets more game time somewhere else, probably goes to a style of football that's more suited to him. Because by all accounts, at Aris Thessaloniki, he was a standout. He did really, really well, but it's not worked for him at Celtic. I get the impression and the feeling that sometimes, the club is just not just Celtic in particular, but big clubs. Sometimes players just can't handle that intensity, and maybe he just needs to go somewhere else because he's clearly got ability, but it's not going to work at Celtic now, I don't think.
No, just final one, Johan, because I said I'd ask you about it. We've not spoken to you since Celtic lost to Rangers. Were you surprised watching on that day? Because you've been so positive about Celtic throughout the season. It didn't look like or feel like a performance like that could come. So how surprised were you by what happened at Ibrox?
No, I was generally. Yes, I thought before the game that if it was any team that really wanted to win this game, it was the home team and Rangers because of the season they've had. But I still thought that you would see a bit more of a fight desire from Celtic, even being having the lead in the league. I just think Rangers. I mean, they were really good on the day. You boys have already probably spoken about that game, but they were really good on the day. Physically, they were great. They won the ball in the right areas, and this. they play the way they do in Europe, where they don't really need to have the ball, where they can press and they win the ball and then they attack. Like it's kind of a counterattack, but quite high up to win the ball. And they did it really, really well, and they've done it in Europe this season as well. And this is probably the biggest difference between the two teams, because Celtic, when they play lesser teams, put it that way, they can easily carve the other teams up, when you go in 90 minutes. But Rangers, they seem to struggle with that. And that has really happened after the last Old Firm game, game they played each other. Rangers have lost points. Celtic has just won all of the games. So that's why, obviously, the gap is too big for anything to happen until the end of the season.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Okay, let's move on. Michael, on to Hibs Motherwell, another one of the Saturday matches, another 3 points for Hibs. We were talking about Martin Boyle. He continues to excel. We need to get David Gray on the show, by the way. Let's try and get David Gray on the show very, very soon. But just another really positive display, especially first half, where they seemed quite far ahead of Motherwell, in fact.
Yeah, first half in particular. I mean, look, the big thing for Hibs now is that they're flying full of confidence, the energy and the tempo, and Triantis, he's
Great
going from strength to strength in the middle of the park, scored a great goal there. Martin Boyle clearly is this, is a sort of talisman who's back to his best. That goal, though, that highlights one of the major issues for Hibs still. Jordan Smith and goals there, it's not good enough. And then kamikaze stuff from Motherwell. They get themselves back into the game, and then Stephen O'Donnell, I mean,
madness.
He's left.
That's lazy.
Yes.
The keeper's getting it all day long. You don't even have to.
Not only that, though, Huts. Like, as a right back, you're set up there. He's left a gaping gap and a hole.
Just get into your position early.
Just close the gap off.
Aye, that's that simple.
Don't let him get in there. Anyway, I mean, look, the big thing for Hibs now is confidence is high, riding the crest of a wave. But this month is important. They need to recruit well. And hopefully, Kieran Bowie will be back before the season's finished as well, which would be a massive plus for them. But they still need to get the defence and the goalkeeper sorted if they're going to really, and I mean really, make a fist of going and trying to challenge for, European spots.
It's amazing to say that now, isn't it?
No, it is.
Like, for what we were talking about at the beginning to what we're talking about now, is
after the Dundee
incredible.
Game, Al.
It's incredible the turnaround. Fair play.
It is ludicrous to think that after that Dundee game, that we'd be sitting here, 10 games roughly since then, and say, Hibs will be in the top 6. You'd be like, no chance. No way.
Going for Europe, no way.
But like Michael says, they're not out of it right now. If they have a poor run now the next 3-4 games,
of course.
they're going to be in problem again. But it's great to see them back. They're unbeaten in 7, aren't they? 5 wins and 2 draws, and they still got like you say, Martin Boyle is scoring goals again. Dwight Gale is there. Dwight Gale is there.
Dwight Gale as well.
Dwight Gale at the moment.
He likes scoring goals, so he's got ability, even if he's getting on a wee bit. But I agree with you guys. They need to, try to have a good transfer window, to steady the ship, and really be strong to strong defensively as well.
Because what they've done now is they've put themselves in a position where they can actually recruit, and I mean well, rather than desperately. Because 6 weeks ago, it would have been a desperation window, whereas now they've bought themselves a bit of time, and perhaps they've bought themselves an aspiration of, do you know what? We might be able to get player X that we didn't think we could get 6 weeks ago, because they've put themselves in the position where you can say to somebody, we're moving forward, we're progressing, we're going to challenge for Europe. You can sell things a little bit better. One defeat since that Dundee game, which was Celtic away, and they performed pretty well.
Yeah.
There have been peaks and troughs in amongst that as well, because the Ross County game at home was on the cusp of being a disaster at half time. They scored in injury time. So as much as things are progressing really well, I would have a word of caution with anybody that's in the hierarchy at the club, and I would imagine they know that things are still just a little bit shaky.
That's what David Gray, he says that though, doesn't he, Mikey? Like, he doesn't get too far ahead of himself. He knows where they've come from. He knows they've turned a corner, but it can quite quickly go back the way it was. But I've been really impressed with what they've done, because I genuinely thought he'd have been gone. After that Dundee game, to be now sitting talking about top six, and of course they'll have an eye on behind them, but fair play.
If he wasn't a club legend, maybe he would have gone, and maybe that had enough good favour from the fans towards David Gray that they thought, well, let's stick for a little bit longer. And they've changed managers so often, Michael. You do need to stick at times. I know it's easy to say that. We've not said that about every club.
About Clement? Are we talking about? I thought we had to stick with people. I thought we had to. No, we don't. What is that? Are we sticking or are we not? One rule for one team, one for another.
Darryl, the thing is,
Hibs have changed a lot down the years.
But Darryl, in all seriousness, every club wants to stick with a manager. Nobody wants to sack a manager, but it gets to a stage where it's like a position's almost untenable.
Yeah.
So I've got to give David Gray a huge amount of credit, because the hole that they were in, like, I think anybody would have question marks about a young, inexperienced manager being able to work their way out of it. And
agreed.
Because one thing is, and Johan will tell you obviously from the managerial side of things as well, like, to be able to keep a side on board, the team, the players, when instinctively he must have just been raging and shaking his head in disbelief at some of the performances and the mistakes that were being made. And that's an art in itself, where inside he must have been thinking, you're hopeless, but I've got to keep you on board. And he's done that brilliantly.
Name names.
I think
I know, I'm joking.
It's not easy. I mean, a few weeks ago, people were saying Triantis looked like a disaster. Bringing him back was a bad decision. Now he looks like an absolute star. And just on Martin Boyle, just briefly, Michael, on his future, if you like, because a lot of talk about his contract situation, the injury record. David Gray obviously wants to keep him. Not an easy one, this, is it, for the board to try and work out? Because when he's good, he is exceptional. But when he's out, he's been out for an awful long time. So can you go and give him, a significant contract?
Do you know, I don't know if you heard David Gray's comments about it after the game, and I thought he again handled it really well. He's saying, look, he's doing brilliantly just now. Every manager would want to keep players like that. The challenge is for him to maintain that. He's been out injured. He's got his fitness back. He's got his confidence back. But the challenge for him is there to go and maintain that. So I thought it was really good in terms of, look, he's not saying anything definitively.
What do you say, Michael?
He's laying down a bit of a challenge to him. I think very much what
3-year contract.
What?
3-year contract.
If Michael's still in charge of business at Timecast, it's a 4.5 year deal.
It was just after last week, one time we were talking about contracts. Let's give him a 3-year and we'll see what happens.
For me, Martin Boyle, the stage his career he's at, I'd be looking to keep him, no question, but it would be with a lot of, caveats and clauses in there. And
incentives to continue playing at that level.
Whether it would be attractive to him or not enough, that's the sort of gamble you take. Whether he was able to go and look at I know he's obviously spoken about the A-League in Australia, whether he'd be able to get a longer deal there and whether he wanted to do that, that's up to him. But I think Hibs are in a position where you don't want to be gambling too much. But if you're able to keep him, but on your terms to a great extent, then of course you would look to keep him and give him that wee bit more of an incentive to, you need to continue to play and at a high level, and then you can still...
What's he on then?
Huh?
What's he on then?
What would his salary?
What's he on? Yeah, salary-wise.
I would hazard a guess that he's probably around about 5 or 6 at the moment.
Yeah.
That's
pretty decent though. No, that's quite high, for a team like Hibs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you've got a club lined up in Sweden for him, Johan? Is that right? Is that why you're asking? No, just briefly, Johan, just to bring you in there, because I know in Martin Boyle, he's a player you've admired down the years. You've seen what he's done in Scotland for many years now. I mean, how do you manage that from the kind of managerial point of view when you know a guy is so valuable, but equally keeping him on the pitch is difficult?
Darryl, this is a tricky one. Why I was so impressed by, a guy like Sir Alex Ferguson. When I sat down with him, once or twice, when he went up to Sydney in Lebanon, it was quite interesting to because to cut the cord from as a manager, when you have had a player that's been so loyal to you, playing great for you, but you can sense that he's downhill, going downhill a wee bit. It's really, really difficult. Only the best manager can, have the ruthlessness, to cut the cord and get rid of players, and have this feeling to do it in the right moment and right time. It's really difficult, because yourself, if you even if you've not been a coach, if you played with players, guys that you have a great relationship on the pitch with, it's really difficult when they leave, and a new one coming in that you don't really know much about. You don't know how they play, and how this partnership is going to be. So it's interesting to see. I understand it's going to be difficult with this Martin Boyle situation, but because he's so injury prone, it is dangerous for a club like Hibs, because he's a top earner there. But knowing now, it's up to him in the rest of the season, try to keep this good scoring, form. And if he does that, I'm quite sure they're going to give him another 2 years.
Yeah, and he's a really good guy, by the way. So most importantly, fingers crossed he stays fit, because that is the most important thing for Martin Boyle here. And if he does that, he's going to get a good contract somewhere. I should just say, by the way, Motherwell, how unlucky they've been with injuries of late. And Paul McGinn just back and then going off injured. And we had John McGinn on recently talking about his brother, how hard he'd been working to get back. And then, Al, it's typical sometimes, isn't it? The harder you fight to get back, and then you're straight back in the team, and boom, it goes again.
But it was his face. You could tell he knew that something that's happened that's going to keep him out, and you really feel for him, because you work so hard to get yourself back. You're desperate to help the team, and sometimes, see, when you're working so, I don't know exactly what it was originally, if it was his groin or his hammy or whatever. There's then maybe a little weakness somewhere else that you've maybe not worked as hard or whatever it may be, and then you come back and you feel something. It's a real shame. So hopefully he's not out too long, and then get back as soon as possible. Right,
onwards to the last game played on Saturday in the top flight, which was St Mirren 0, Dundee United 1. Took a while, Michael, for this game to come to life. It definitely did that in the second half. Mad finish to the game, all sorts going on here, but in the end, another 3 points for Dundee United.
Yeah, they continue to march on and on, really. It's quite impressive. Also, I mean, look, this for me is... see, when you see I don't know if you get the angle from behind the goals. It's there in front of him, gaping, and it's a real poor miss. Great bit of play to stick him through, but it's a poor miss, which is not something you can say for Louis Moult. The goal is absolutely sensational. His overhead kick that he scores in injury time. This is there was a little bit of an opportunity here, and Stramash getting cleared from one end to the other, but.
It was end-to-end, actually, this part of the game.
What's that, sorry?
It was really end-to-end, this part of the game.
Yeah.
It was. This is, as I said, just an absolutely sensational goal. Brilliant.
Finish.
And, he'd taken an injection in his shoulder to make sure he was able to, sit on the bench. The penalty kick that's given here, I think it's extremely harsh.
It is.
I'm still not sure how much...
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
He actually pulls out. You can see that he's desperate to dangle a leg when Olasanya's twisting and turning him. Then the Hope pulls it out, and even if there's the slightest of contact, I'm sorry, Olasanya's a big, powerful guy. It's not sending him down. I understand from a forwards point of view, but you have to look at that and go, is there enough contact to put him down? And for me, it's not. I mean, look, it does great there. No. Just put it in. Just put it in instead of, it looks like he's flung himself to the ground. But Walton and goals, great save. Yeah. I thought there was some big saves from both goalkeepers. It was very end-to-end. Really exciting game. But yeah, Dundee United just keep marching on. And
so
St Mirren, they've struggled since the Rangers win. They've struggled since then.
They have. St Mirren have 4 defeats in a row since they beat Rangers. But on Dundee United, Johan, to come up from the champion, Jim Goodwin deserves all sorts of credit. I think you saw a bit of Dundee United against Celtic recently, the midweek game. They really pushed Celtic hard in that second half as well. There's a lot about them to like, isn't there?
Yeah, that's why I was a bit surprised that this weekend's game against St Mirren was so open, because they're very well balanced usually under Jim Goodwin. And you have to, I mean, he's got a lot of experience now in SPL, Jim Goodwin. He's been around now a wee bit. He's been involved in successes and down periods as well. He's been involved a lot, and So with that experience, he's built a good team because they are newly promoted. It's been a lot of changes in the squad as well. So that's why I'm really impressed by his work. And I think they are very good balanced in the team. They only conceded 24 goals, and they have a goal scorer in Sam Dolby as well. So it looks good for them. It looks really good for them, I have to say. If they are going to be clever, not only now, but clever in the summer as well, I think they have a really good chance to become a team that's going to be in the top 4 for the next 3-4 years on the trot.
Yeah, a lot of talented players, and Jim Goodwin often has said this season, Michael, it's a small squad, but the fact they can make 5 changes after Celtic Park got into that game in Paisley at the weekend and still go and win in the way they did, it actually shows that the quality there might be small, but the quality's excellent. Lot of good players to turn to.
Yep, I mean, I think there's been a clear cost-saving initiative there at Dundee United. They've increased their revenue, getting back up into the top flight inevitably, but they're trying to get themselves in a position where it's more cost-effective and self-sufficient to a great extent. I mean, Mark Algren has spent an absolute fortune there, and it never really seemed like it was going to be able to get themselves balanced out. Now it looks like they genuinely can, and a lot of that is down to just better management, and I don't mean just football. Obviously, the running of the club. Jim Goodwin has done wonders there for his own managerial reputation, as Johan's talking about. Because when you think about sack from Aberdeen, it was at such a low ebb. Perhaps slightly fortunate to walk straight back into the Dundee United job, but credit to him because he's done brilliantly and he has recruited well, and he's done it in such a fashion where he's not spent a fortune. He's been able to recruit really well, good balanced team. Johan makes a good point. Defensively sound, strongest record outside of Celtic and Rangers, and they're riding the crest of a wave at the moment, but they're right in the hunt there for third spot. And what an achievement that would be for them if they were able to get European football this season.
You had them fighting for second last week, Michael. You've just demoted them a place. They're now in the fight for third, are they?
It just changes like the weather, doesn't it? You just kind of let them go.
Sorry, I misspoke there. Yes. Second.
Okay. He's backtracking. Right, on to Rangers. Why not then? On to Sunday, on to Rangers, Alan. Very good first half. Very straightforward first half. It's another game, by the way. St Johnstone are down by 3 goals before they've even really got started. And we'll come to this.
What is this? It's terrible.
They need
this
a
is the problem.
Play, didn't they? Because
of course
it was dreadful against Dundee at times midweek.
Yeah, dreadful. And at this moment in time, from a Rangers point of view, it's just winning games. I mean, they want to be playing good football and everything, but I think St Johnstone really helped them out. I mean, their defence is all over the gaff. I mean, the first one for the throw-in, it lets them down that. The spaces are too wide. If you play Tierney in, he's ultimately will finish because he's been decent at that this season. And just here, I mean, Sanders, you see him there, anywhere but there. Literally anywhere but there. And Diamandi's got one in a plate. But this was a bit of a strange one. Hadji marking in the box against one of their best headers or attackers in the kind of attacking areas is poor. But look, that's as quiet as I've heard Ibrox in a long time. And I know we're going to get onto it and speak about the Union Bears and leaving and everything, but really quiet. Second half, I thought you could feel it within the players that something just kind of left them a little bit. They weren't driving forward. And I think that's something that the manager won't be happy with, that they didn't go and get more goals. They didn't kind of go and put the foot down, and they didn't get the clean sheet as well. But they're just getting through, obviously, games at this moment in time, and it's just about winning and getting the points on the board because their away form, I mean, see, when you're looking at dropping 20 points away from home, the home form's fine. I mean, when you actually look at it, it's 1 draw and the rest are wins, but the away form, oh my goodness, I mean, the drop-off in performances is astounding.
San Fran Celtic there with a little point coming in. I think it was a question that San Fran Celtic also answered himself. Obviously, if Rangers could get Tierney over the line, Michael, they would, but the question marks of what they'd have to pay.
Not be able to. Won't be able to.
I've got to say, I mean, you could see straight away as soon as he came in, he was a good player, and he's only got better and better for me. I was going to ask you, right, pivoting slightly here. You, as a, I was going to say fairly intellectual person.
Nope. Wow.
Why, and you understand the industry, why would Patrick Stewart release that statement before 2 home games and on the back of all those, when you know, even in his statement, he talks about it's an unpopular and difficult decision. Surely you wait until after the Aberdeen game where you're thinking you've got potentially a win against St Johnstone, potentially a win against Aberdeen. You're not talking about 2 weeks' time. You're talking about 5 days. And all of a sudden, the perception is it's on the back of 2 wins. You might have signed somebody in the window. It's all about positioning to send out the message at the right time. I just thought he was already doing something he knew was going to be unpopular at the wrong time.
Yeah. If you're asking me on timing, it is a bit of a head scratcher. He's come into the football club. He's had a bit of time now to look at the football club behind the scenes. Obviously, the main message he was trying to get across clearly was this full review they're going to do of the whole football club, which they clearly clearly need it. But to going back Philippe Clement in the way that he did, especially when there's a fans protest, which I'll come to in a moment, very, very, very strange when you see this happening at Ibrox on the same day. And I know there was a mixed response to this, but it's a bit of a head scratcher, especially then when you hear Philippe Clement after the game, Alan, talking about what's been said and talking about his own position. Again, in fairness, he keeps on answering the question, but he doesn't seem like he's worried at all. He said, as far as I'm concerned,
I think he's been told.
Yeah.
I think we've spoken about this for weeks now, us on here and out with and stuff, and he's obviously been told in the background, look, this is long term. It's not a short term fix. The cycle needs to change. Patrick Stewart spoke about it. It's not a silver bullet, just getting rid of a manager, bringing somebody else in, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. That's not how it works. The thing with the manager is he does kind of come to the front and he'll answer the questions. He knows it's not good enough. The way form is not good enough by any stretch of the matter. He knows it has to change. But we've said on here as well, it's not going to happen overnight. And I know it's a results-driven business, and I know if it continues in this way, he will lose his job. But I think in the meantime, and I know it's not popular with some of the sections of the fans, but they need to stick with somebody at some point. We have seen they're capable of good performances. Europe, Celtic. The problem is they can't do it consistently and find other ways to win when they're away from home. That needs to change. But at this moment in time, I think personally they have to stick with them, because if you just keep changing, it's the same cycle as we've all been talking about all season. It needs to change at some stage. The thing with the walkout, look, I understand fans they pay their money, they've got a right to say whatever they want. And the Union Bears, they came out with their statement and they've done what they've done. Me personally, I don't think it helps. So, I mean, they create a lot of the noise and a lot of the atmosphere within the stadium. I think it'd have been better if they were there, held up the banners, said what they wanted to say. I thought it would have been better if they were there. But ultimately, I understand they pay their money and they can make the choice.
And they said since, Alan, they would do it again. And they will do it again until things actually change at the football club.
So what do they want to change then? Is it we want the manager out? Because if that's the case, just say it.
They want
but Rangers fans have wanted success for years and years and years. Like winning one league's not enough. They've not been competing enough throughout the years. It's just where they are at this moment in time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take time. And I just think, unfortunately, they're going to have to stick with somebody to try and get to the better times. If you just keep changing, same cycle, same thing happens. Celtic have got stability. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens through time. Rangers are going to need, I think, and I've said this before, it's going to be up and down. It's going to be roller coaster a little bit to get to somewhere better.
There's obviously a mentality issue as well, Johan, with some of the Rangers players. It's not just on the manager, because if they can perform against teams like Celtic and some of the best teams in Europe and then not beat some of the other teams they might be expected to beat and not winning away from home, obviously some of the players have to be looked at as well. But just on the manager, Johan, because you've seen a lot of Rangers this season and in the past few years as well, so you know the kind of standards they got to before they dropped again after European finals and then the fall since then, Johan. You've seen a lot of Rangers in that time. So this current manager with this current squad, are you surprised they've stuck with him for so long?
No, not at all. I'm just I'm fighting with myself. I don't really know if it's the manager's fault, really. I more see it that the quality within the squad is not good enough compared to Celtics anyway. And for a Rangers team, that might be down to financially. I don't know, but right now we're going to come back and be like, Michael's old team, Man United. Are Rangers going to sack manager all the time? Then they will never ever get stability if they don't win the Euro jackpot or the lottery, and suddenly they have billions to spend. That's the problem. I think he's done reasonably enough with the quality he's got. But yes, he knows, the player knows that they've only won 13 out of 22 league games. That is shocking for a club like Rangers. That is shocking. And like Alan says, their way form is just incredible, because they should be good enough, whoever wears that shirt, to be able to have like 65-70% of possession against the teams, except apart from Celtic, and be able to create and open up their defenses, which they don't. They are better without possession. They're better when they have like 35-40% possession, and they use the physicality, they win the ball in good areas, and then they play through teams. But they can't open up teams that play defensively against them.
Did you know?
It's a big games ahead.
Johan makes a really good point there, Darryl, and I think it speaks towards what we were talking about earlier in the season, where, see, when you looked at that front four in particular, previously, you had Czerny, you had Lawrence that was playing in number 10, or Diamonde when he wasn't actually performing as well, and then Bayrami on the left and Dessers at the top, and you're going, they don't have that cutting edge. They didn't, whereas now it's much better, in terms of Czerny's continued to evolve and become a better player. Bayrami is better in the number 10 role, but I still think he's not as imposing as you need and want. But Hadji's brought a dynamism on the left, and Iggeman is completely, changed things for them as a striker. So that's where a bit better quality comes in. But see what Johan's talking about in terms of, see, when you're playing against the top teams, those games take care of themselves to a great extent. And exactly like he says, not having the expectation of making the game happen. You're actually forcing mistakes on the opposition, and you are capitalising on those mistakes. Rangers are far better at that. But when they're having to dictate and cut the teams open, I think slight mentality issue and a slight quality deficit. And that's why, particularly away from home, it's causing them real issues.
Yeah. See, the mentality bit, that would be a problem for me as a professional, like somebody questioning my mentality, because as you rightly put it, Michael, it is easy to get up for big games, but I go into every single game with the exact same mindset where I need to win. Especially, it doesn't matter what club I was at, but Rangers, you knew what was on the line. I have to win. It doesn't matter if I'm playing Dundee United, Aberdeen, it doesn't matter. So every focus was the exact same. And I think that's a big issue if that's what it's coming down to.
Alan, we talked about mentality. Just Michael, just briefly, we talked about mentality, talked about players, but also the manager, because some of the fans are saying this, and this is important as well. Alan, in your kind of day, the top players play just about every single game. Now, recently, when the managers had to win matches, he's left Raskin out, he's left Czerny out. This is, I think, what's annoyed the fans more than anything. Probably some of those fans that walked out at the weekend, Alan. So the manager can't be bulletproof. There has to be some criticism for him as well.
No, I'm totally with you. Look, I don't think it's just the players, and I don't think it's just the manager. I think it's a bit of both. And you're right. Ultimately, the manager loses his job if the team isn't winning. If I was the manager, or even when I was playing with Rangers, that's all I can talk about is the top players played. Your Barry Fergusons of the world, these guys, they played every single game unless their leg was literally falling off. And that's what happened. You lent on these guys, and everybody else round about them went with him. Because he dragged the standards, he dragged everybody with you, and you fought and you ran through brick walls for these guys. And I just don't see that right now. And that's one of the main things.
That 100% nailed on. And that's, I was going to say, a few weeks ago, Scotty Arfield was talking about how once you can actually build a bit of momentum, you can carry some people with you. And for me, it's an equation. When you've got too many, of the wrong type, then it becomes very difficult to create that environment. You can carry some folk, absolutely, who they see if it's a bad changing room, they'll drift that way. See if it's a good changing room, they'll drift that way. But then you've got the characters that, regardless of what it's like, that's just the person they are. And Rangers don't have enough strong characters like that. It's not a case, when you're talking about the mentality of them, it's not a case of saying, oh, they're hopeless, they've got the wrong mentality. For me, the core of the team's not strong enough to carry some of those flakier people who would get brought along if things were going well and they had good, more characters, strong characters. I just don't think they've got enough of them to actually create the environment where they can carry a few of those. Yeah, the equation is out of balance.
They certainly can't afford injuries to key players. They've had a few of them to deal with as well, in fairness, especially defensive issues and big games ahead. Aberdeen, Man United on the horizon. That game, Union Saint-Gilloise, maybe could hang their European fate on that game. Maybe not, because they've done well in Europe this season. But regardless, they want to finish strong. So big games ahead. Things will change. Talking points will change in Rangers, it seems, every single week, Alan. Just one question I wanted to ask you, Michael, because there was a story linking Rangers to a Dundee player this week. It was actually in the Tayside press. Don't know if it's true or not, but Lyle Cameron was the name that was mentioned. Easy link, I suppose, because you look what Luke McCowan's done at Celtic and stepping up to that level. But you probably see more than Lyle Cameron than anyone else here. So would that be a good signing for Rangers, if there's any truth in that?
And not a bad signing. Not a bad signing. But you know, what it smacks to me of is that the club recognising that they have ignored the domestic market too much previously.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with the greatest respect to Lyle Cameron, I don't think he's nearly as good as some of the guys that they've missed out on in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's like they're recognising their mistake and looking to rectify it with somebody that I think perhaps isn't at the level of some of those people that they've missed out on. But the beauty about the domestic market is, with somebody like Lyle Cameron, you wouldn't be having to spend a fortune.
He's a free. He'd be a free transfer, Michael.
Yeah. So, but I'm even talking about wages as well.
Yes.
So even if he wasn't to hit the heights, there's not a lot lost. And of course, you've then got the UEFA aspect of you need some domestic quality to be able to hit the quotas that you need within your squad.
Yeah. Okay. Final game played at the weekend, Aberdeen Hearts. There's so many talking points from this one. And of course, the Jambos at the end, the penalty, great save, by the way. But Johan, just on Aberdeen, because I know you've always kept a close eye on what Jimmy Tillin has done. And the last time you were on, some great saves, but the last time you were on, Johan, you know, Aberdeen maybe I think had just hit a bit of a sticky patch, but we couldn't have seen this coming. Are you kind of shocked by the way they've fallen away this season? How quickly it's changed?
I had to be. I think last time I was on the show, I was actually telling Alan that it was a danger for Rangers to finish behind Aberdeen. So here I'm sitting in a way. They haven't won last 11 games, 4 draws and 7 defeats. I didn't see this coming. I didn't, you know. I think generally we thought they would, you know, tail off a wee bit from this sensational start. That's natural because it was just unbelievable what happened, you know, from August and onwards. But now it's worrying times for them. It is. They've only, I think, especially, you know, scoring goals has been an issue lately. They have only scored 1 goal the last 5 games. I think it's only 4 goals in 9 games. That's just shocking. You know, that's a relegation form. Obviously, you can see they're going to be linked with a lot of players now, and they've already signed a few. Jimmy Tillin, he worked with Ockels at Elfsborg before Ockels went to, I can't remember where he went to, but
Ockels looked very much short of match fitness in the game, Johan. But is he a talented player? Do you think who can make a difference?
Reasonably well, yes. I think he's a guy that needs manager's love. His arm around him, arm around his shoulder. He's quite quick. He is quick. He lives off his pace. I wouldn't say he's a natural goal scorer, but he used to actually score quite a number of goals for Elfsborg when Jimmy Tillin was the manager. So they probably need to give him a wee bit of time and show a bit of patience when it comes to him. But he's one of them that if he starts scoring goals or being efficient or being successful, then he rides that wave. He rides that wave, and he plays probably better than he actually is as a player. But he's one of them as well. If it doesn't go for him, he's not one he's not one who's gonna carry the team. Put it that way.
It didn't go for him really at the weekend. Christos Tobers, the Latvian captain, played in the match. He came off. Not sure if it's an injury or not. Some defensive concerns, but tonight they've added Alfie Dorrington on loan from Spurs, so that's a centre half in the door. Also, a lot of talk that a deal's about to be done, if it's not already done, for Alexander Jensen, 23-year-old Danish player, £650,000. I think he's playing in Sweden at the moment, or was playing in Sweden. What can you tell us about Alexander Jensen, Johan?
That's actually an interesting one. He's I wouldn't say he's a sensational player. He probably wouldn't be signed by Aberdeen, but no disrespect.
You better not be going to Pittodrie soon, by the way. You're in big trouble. More trouble than Alan.
No, not at all. You know, I like going to Pittodrie because I never lost there. So, but Alex Johansson is Danish. He's played for Brommapojken in Sweden for the last Jensen for the last 2 years. He's, I would say, he plays with energy. He's very efficient. He's very steady. He likes to go forward with a lot of energy, but he can defend as well. He's a bit like, not as good, obviously, but he's a bit like Alistair Johnston in a way.
Can you take that?
No, it's obviously not as good, you know. But I think he's going to fit in very good in that team. He's very efficient. He's very steady. He can, if he gets his marching orders to go forward, he will do. So he's good at most things without being wow. But he's only 23 years old as well. You know, I was surprised by that because I think he played with a lot of experience. You know, when you look at him, you know, he looks like a guy he's played as a right back for a number of years. So I think he will definitely be steady for Aberdeen in that position.
Jimmy Tillin's obviously been backed if it's £650,000, and obviously they want to continue to back him and strengthen the squad. I'll come to Hearts in just a second with you, Michael. A bit of news on Hearts as well. I'll bring Johan back in, another name. He can give us a lowdown on one of the Hearts players that looks as if he's about to sign. But just on Aberdeen, Alan, that Ross Doohan save, brilliant save towards the end of the game.
Brilliant save.
That might just be the kind of thing that turns a season. We said it about Hibs, if you remember, after the 3-3 draw with Aberdeen. Sometimes just a moment like that, late in the day when you think, oh, not again, surely not another defeat. To pull that off, what that can do, you just never know. That might be the turning point.
Well, they'll be hoping so. I mean, I thought it was important that they stopped that. It was like 5 defeats in a row. So if they were to lose a goal there and it goes to 6 and the confidence is even lower, and then it starts to become difficult to play Rangers next, and then you never know. But it was such a great save from Doohan from the penalty, and that might just spark a little bit of life into him. You've seen him after the game going to not celebrate with the fans, but thank them and different things. So that just could be the turning point. They'll be hoping, like what happened with Hibs, because they need something. I mean, it's not been good enough. They know it. I just feel they've not really been getting the rub of the green in recent weeks. There's been signs in some games that they're kind of getting back
like
to
Dundee United, that game could have gone either way.
But they're just missing something. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's just something. They were making silly mistakes for goals, and of course, scoring goals has been a problem. You think with the additions coming in, might give them a little bit of confidence, a little bit of new lease of life. Look, but we'll see. They've got a tough game next, though.
You know, if you look at I'm thinking back the last 5 or 6 games for Aberdeen. There's quite a similar pattern. You look at the Hibs game at home; they lost 3-1. They started well, scored the first goal with Keskinen, but then they conceded the equaliser pretty quickly. And then there's been the Motherwell game as well, where they started quite brightly, but just not really troubling the goalkeeper enough. Same with the Dundee United game, started quite brightly. And the Hearts game as well, I thought they started well. You look at the chances that, Keskinen had, he did a couple
has to score.
Went through, and you think, if they're able to score and just hold on to a lead for at least 5-10 minutes, then perhaps they can build their way back into the game. But they're going to Ibrox next, in a couple of days. And, well, Rangers...
It'll be interesting, that, by the way. I know they've got a good record at home, but it'll be interesting.
Rangers' record at home is very good, but if Aberdeen are able to perform quite as well as they have in the opening stages and score first, Ibrox could be toxic, you know, and that could be what reignites Aberdeen's season. The flip side is, if they capitulate, where do Aberdeen go from there? You know, it really is on a knife
Well, they've
edge.
got new players coming in, as Alan said, so hopefully some of those players will bed in and they'll go again. Listen, we're approaching an hour talking about toxic. Big Johan will be toxic in a minute because he's got a glass of red wine waiting as he always does on a Monday night. If we don't get him off in the next 2 or 3 minutes, all hell will break loose. There'll be no more physical specimens left in this programme. Right, just on Hearts, Michael, briefly, I say briefly, but let's just get into it brief. You were really concerned a couple of weeks ago, Neil Critchley, major question marks. He's being backed as well, just like Yemi Talene. It looks like new players are starting to arrive day by day there. It's a better run. It could easily have been 3 wins in a row. Do you feel now that they're on a much better track and they can be consistent now?
Flip that coin. It's a tip.
I genuinely don't know. I don't know. I mean, ultimately, do I think that they're going to, get on the right? This season is just a complete write-off because I don't see them. I mean, it's still very tight.
Things can turn. Look at Hibs.
Yes, I get that, right? And it's still tight. They're in no. I mean, St Johnstone are gone, right? Yeah. So really, it's a case of you're talking about 6 teams possibly who are potentially looking at a relegation playoff place or challenging for Europe, which is crazy. But for Hearts, this season is going to be nowhere near what it could and should be. So you're really looking at, for me personally, to next season. And do I think that they've got the foundations in place to maximise the potential of the club? I still don't know. I still could not say with any certainty that yes, they have. Because as much as Neil Critchley is a really nice guy and clearly knows his football, that's not necessarily, well, it's not a case of not necessarily. That is not the only things you need to be a strong, good manager. And I don't think that it is the full package there to be a strong Hearts manager.
Jamie McCart looks like he's going to be a good signing, despite your gripe about the length of contract, Michael.
Those things, are they don't necessarily.
I get it.
Equate to the same thing.
I know.
Be a strong signing, but still a ludicrously long contract.
If he's a brilliant signing for 4.5 years, it could be a shrewd move. But anyway, we'll see. Time will tell. If we're still doing this show in 4.5 years,
have you ever heard of when somebody's at a club and they sign an extension?
Oh, yeah.
That can happen. That's allowed.
Absolutely. Sometimes it even happens on TV. Islam Chesnikov is in Hearts transfer talks, apparently. Kazakhstani international winger. So maybe another forward option. Kabangu looks as if there's something about him when he came on in the game for sure. Can maybe make a bit of a difference. Michael's not sure.
It's a good header for him, to be fair. It's a decent header. Some say for doing again. Right.
Yeah, and look, he looks mobile. And obviously at the moment, there's still some speculation about Lawrence Shankland, maybe a move to Turkey, although Neil Critchley says that's not happening at the moment. Michael went to Turkey at one point. That's a whole different show, by the way. I'm telling you right now. Final one.
Right, can I just be clear?
Yeah.
That wasn't for teeth or hair.
No.
I thought your hair was looking awful thick. You've been in Turkey.
There was definitely a football move in there somewhere, and there's all sorts of stories that I've heard, by the way, and legal cases.
It's debatable if it was for football as well.
Yeah, true. But just the final one, because I'm just seeing here that it looks like Hearts are about to sign another Swedish-based player, Austrian centre-back Michael Steinvender is wanted by Hearts. Apparently talks are well in advanced. 24-year-old who played in Austria for many years before his move to Sweden, IFK Värnamo, I think I'm reading here. Johan, do you know the player? Would he be a good signing?
Good luck, Hearts. No, I'm just kidding. He was decent for Värnamo, who's a really, really small club, who just survived relegation, going down and getting relegated. He's like 6'3", quite lanky, good in the air though when it comes to corners and wide free kicks. I'm not too sure he's got the character to marshal the defense, but he's quite mobile because he's not the heaviest like they are today. He's 6'3", but very, very quite slim. Like probably maximum 80 kilos. So he's not a big boy when it comes to that, but he's decent on the ball and he can play his football, which is like the modern game. If he's a perfect fit for Hearts, honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. It's difficult to tell. It's just about the character. If he's got a strong character, he will go in there and know that they've been sort of really quality and be able to become a leader. If it's not the right character, then he will just fall apart.
Okay. Good info. We need some good characters in this show, Johan. Get yourself back on very, very soon.
I
Can't
will.
believe we've broken an hour, by the way, Michael. I'm not sure we'll get this on the telly now. This is devastating.
Next year it might be longer. Next year it might be an hour and a half.
We're killing people already, just getting this
I
far.
don't
We can't be doing that, Al. Listen, very, very much out of time. Johan, pleasure to see you again. Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming on the
boys.
show.
Thank you.
Alan, Michael, thank you as always. We will
Yes.
see you next week on the Social Club. Bye for now.
The Scottish Football Social Club is brought to you by McBookie.com. Take a lookie at McBookie today.